And I will pass it over to our next panel. What is impact? So floor is yours, panel.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. Tēnā koutou, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Caroline Thalund, and our panel is called Human Stories of Impact. So we all know that the conversation around sustainability and impact can often be filled with kind of gloom and complexity. But today we want to shift that narrative. So we're here today to celebrate the brighter side of impact, to explore the human stories, stories that inspire, uplift, and fill us all with hope. And so we're fortunate to have 5 speakers with us here today, each exemplifying what it means to create a positive impact. So through their stories, you're not only going to get a glimpse of the incredible work being done, but also we hope that you will leave here feeling empowered and inspired. So before we dive in, just a little bit of housekeeping. So our session will run for about 45 minutes, and we've allocated 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. So as you listen to all of these stories, please jot down any questions you may have for our speakers or pop them in the chat, and we'll then address them during the Q&A segment at the end. Now, to kick off and set the stage, I would love to share some of my own experiences with creating impact. So I worked in the wider sustainability space for 20 years and now run my own business as an ESG sustainability consultant and providing a software product called S360 that I developed to help businesses kick off or accelerate their sustainability journeys. So I'd like to share 2 of my customers' inspirational stories with you today, just to set the scene for all these other wonderful presenters. So the first example I would like to share is an initiative that really embodies the spirit of collaboration and responsible practice in the investment space and breaking new ground for that sector. So as a consultant, I had the privilege of assisting a group of over 20 New Zealand and Australian venture capital firms in researching and selecting a unified framework called ESGVC. And it's aimed at assessing your ESG, so environmental, social, and governance performance, and then also benchmarking it globally. Oh my goodness. Sorry, have I been on mute all this time?
No, just for a split second there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just realized it was on mute. Sorry about that.
You're on mute again.
Yeah.
Don't know why it keeps doing that. Sorry. Okay, I think we're good now. Right. This project addresses, which has previously been a quite fragmented approach, and streamlining the reporting process for companies on ESG matters through like one single unified framework. Now, these venture capital firms, in partnership with key industry bodies from New Zealand and Australia and Europe, are bringing the framework to life, as hundreds of these companies they have invested in are taking part in this benchmarking process. And then next up, the exciting stages of helping each company then move on and progress their sustainability journeys. So this initiative marks a really significant step towards establishing common standards for ESG performance in the venture capital space and creating a greater positive impact and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. So that's amazing. Now, the second and last example I would like to share with you is one of my S360 software customers, Untouched World. So Untouched World is a sustainable lifestyle brand based here in Christchurch, and they believe in quality over quantity and doing the right thing by people and the planet. So they have been using S360 as the hub for all the sustainability data, delivering projects and getting all the team involved. And they have set some really ambitious goals and actioned inspirational projects and many more things in the works that I would like to celebrate today. So it's predicted, as you probably know, that by 2050, there'll be more plastic than fish in the ocean. And a shocking study has found that the single greatest source of plastic in our oceans is tiny clothing fibers, just like bags, bottles, and other more familiar forms of plastic. These fibers are not biodegradable and can take up to 500 years to decompose. So Untouched World has set a goal to use 100% natural fibers to combat the microplastics issue in fashion. And they're currently reaching 93% of natural degradable fibers and working to replace the remaining 7, like lycra and nylon, with natural alternatives by 2030. They also manufacture their products locally, and it has increased it to 94%, which is amazing as well. It really ensures a transparent and straightforward supply chain. They also source locally, so 93% of merino wool is sourced locally from Glenthorne Station, promoting ethical and regenerative wool production. And they innovate, so they have launched a new project called Rubbish Socks, which is basically recycling yarn scraps from the different clothing production runs to create a new yarn, which is then knitted into socks, which is really just exemplifying as well a circular economy practice within the fashion industry. So I hope those two stories that you find them really inspirational. But now I want to introduce you to our first speaker, Alexander Kuch, who is beaming in from Auckland today. So Alex will share a compelling story about coordinating a campaign benefiting families in partnership with the Warehouse Group. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for that introduction. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, that my poor Danish attempt.
No, thank you very much.
Yes.
Bitte.
So yeah, a bit of background about me. So I'm originally adopted from Romania to Germany and moved with family to New Zealand when I was 11 years old. And I've worked in the sustainability space. Highlights of that include working at the Warehouse Group in their sustainability team and working on community projects there, and spending the last couple of years working in Europe, including working for the German government for one of the key speakers there on economic development cooperation, and also in the private sector. And I recently came back to New Zealand and launched my own sustainability practice in New Zealand. And so the work I was doing at the Warehouse Group is where the question is on impact. So in my topic, we're going to be looking at why asking the right question for impact is important. So the topic that we're going to be example I'm going to be focusing on how clear communication and expectation setting from the beginning of the project was important, and how regular interaction with all the stakeholders was critical, and how really defining what's the impact going to be for everyone and evaluating what happened. So the topic that we worked with Plunkett together to target 2,500 family from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds to deliver baby packs. And the goal was to deliver them we had clear goals to deliver them by the first week of November in 2019, and to make sure it meets the certain budget. And what I did at the beginning, I got all stakeholders at the Warehouse Group, internal, external, into a room and says, this is why we're all doing it. This is what needs to be done by this time. And you guys are all the experts, and I'm relying on you, and let me know how I can empower you to make this happen. And had weekly updates with all this over 20 internal and external stakeholders. And despite running into challenges like having items delayed, we still then managed to finish a week ahead of schedule, because we had clear expectation setting at the beginning, and then also at all the projects at the end, we did a review of what went well and what could have been improved. And overall, what really the lesson there for impact is setting clear expectations with the stakeholders, and getting all people together at the beginning, and then constantly measuring what's happening, and then reviewing the campaign, what went well. So I think that was a really good lesson for me in my sustainability journey, is having clear expectation setting and reviewing what's happening and engaging with the stakeholders, and then evaluating together what went well and how we can support each other more. So that's in short my experiences of impact.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. It's amazing to hear about the positive impact you've been making, empowering those vulnerable families through that campaign. Now let's hear from our next speaker, Pip Wheaton. Coming to us from Wellington, Pip has been researching social entrepreneurs focused on climate change. So she will share some key strategies these change makers commonly employ. The floor is yours, Pip.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Pip Wheaton toka ingoa. We're all given 4 minutes to share stories of impact, and I could share lots of specific examples through the work that I've done over the years. I currently work for Wellington City Council on the climate change team, and I also work for an organization called Ashoka that supports social entrepreneurs around the world. And so I thought, rather than sharing my story of impact or any one story of impact, that I would share some common strategies, some common themes that I see amongst the work of people who are specifically focused on climate change and on very specifically empowering other people to be driving action. So when it comes to climate change, each of us is having an impact, whether we think about it or not, impact just by going about our daily lives, because the causes of the climate and ecological emergency are so embedded in our economies and societies. And that's both empowering, but also paralyzing all at once, because to reduce emissions to practically zero, we need to change everything. So policy, business models, individual behavior changes, social norms, regulations, finance flows, the very way that we understand the world and our role in it needs to change. And so that means that it's going to take everyone, everywhere, all at once. And while there's really good news in that people care, and they increasingly care, the not so good news is that change isn't happening at the speed needed, despite the increasing concern, despite an ever-growing suite of proven solutions, despite the impacts of climate change unfolding around the world in real time. It's like, it's not a future problem. We can see that it's now. So the question that I've become fascinated with is, how do we activate people to become climate change makers? And so for the past 2 years, through my work at Ashoka, I've been interviewing leading social entrepreneurs working on climate change all around the world, trying to understand what they do. And the research has identified 3 overarching strategies, and they seem to work in vastly different contexts. So I've been interviewing people on every continent, working with very different groups. So whether it's big business through to subsistence farmers or small fishing communities, and these strategies turn up again and again. And so the 3 strategies are making it personal, curating support, and realigning systems. And so what do each of these mean? So the first one, making it personal. When it comes to climate change, we need to be building internal motivation. We need to be building agency and self-efficacy. And to do that, it's important to tap into the things that people care about. It's about tying climate change or climate action to the specific context of a person's role or geography or the things that they care about, and communicating the complexities and possibilities in a way that deeply resonates with them as an individual. Because climate change is such a technical topic on one hand. Quite often when we talk about it in terms of emissions and net zero and all of this jargon, but all that does is sort of trigger an expert lens for people. Like, this is going to take an expert to solve this, and I'm not an expert. But if you can make it personal for people, then that activates their internal motivation. So the second strategy is around curating support. The climate action is often hard. Having impact on anything is often hard. The social entrepreneurs that I spoke to understood how important it was that people feel supported in that, and really wrapped their arms around the individuals that they were working with, either by building a community of peers or providing one-on-one guidance, and often just providing the sustained energy needed for shifting inertia in a system. And then the third strategy was realigning systems. So part of the reason why change is hard is because the causes of the climate and ecological emergency are deeply embedded in the current system. So an important part of unlocking individuals' agency is about removing barriers in a really practical sense. And that empowers more individuals to be able to contribute and fosters a just transition. I find too often in the conversations that I'm in, people focus either on individual actions, individualistic changes, or systems change, systemic approaches. But it kind of misses the interaction between those two, the fact that systems are changed and shaped by the people that make them up and that participate in them. And so maybe the call to action here is for anybody who's seeking to have a more deliberate impact on climate change, or to step up what they're already doing, is just finding the places that you can bring energy, because that's vital for shifting this stuck system. And my time is up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pip. That research into, strategies and making it personal and realigning systems is really eye-opening and provides a fresh perspective on global climate efforts. So next up, we have Freda Wells, also from Wellington. Now, Freda will dive into the significance of psychological safety in creating an impact, and will also offer us some philosophical insights into what impact means to her. Freda.
Thank you. Just getting started on my timer here. 4 minutes is the shortest talk I'll ever give. So, hello everybody. Kia ora koutou. My name's Freda Wells, and my background, I'm a bit of a generalist. I studied psychology, communications, environmental science. I'm also a yoga teacher, which I think is possibly the biggest thing I'm going to bring to my talk today. And in my day job, I'm a communications engagement advisor for the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee. So a big, gnarly regional program with 18 project leads, 18 different organizations, trying to find solutions on shared growth-related challenges. So a total beast. You'll all be nodding about that. And it makes me think of that saying that yesterday's solutions are today's problems. So I think my talk today is a bit about not just more plans and more solutions, but a whole paradigm shift. And yeah, I also have a side hustle now that I'm 3.5 minutes in. The Good Life Collective is designed to shape constructive generative narratives and organize dialogic events to connect people with ideas. So what is that? I'll see if I can sum that up. So what is impact? I wanted to just cut left a little and ask you, how do you feel right now? Where is the energy in you? Is it in your head? Is it in your stomach, your feet? Take a big breath. So I feel like I kind of just touched on a little bit of yoga psychology. Nice to see some people breathing there. And a little bit of making the invisible visible. And I think that's what I want to bring to my angle on impact. Is it like this impact, like this big meteor just hit the planet, boom? Or is it a multiplicity of tiny little moments and shifts that are so invisible but build up together to make this thing that we call impact? And I'm really going to run out of time. So so I think instead of going into my work examples, which like Pip, I think I'll just try and capture some of the themes. When I've shifted my focus, like the name of this conference, a seed grows into a tree in a forest through its DNA, and that's its invisible power. So what is the DNA in our projects and in ourselves? And so I like to talk a lot about just going where the energy is. So I guess my real life story of impact is seeing BAU program management boxes all being ticked. Like the reports are happening, the meetings are happening, there's 101s, there's schedules, but all these beautiful project leads are faltering and they're stuck in the planning and there's this attrition. So with my psychology hat on, I was sort of looking at where's the energy. And I think my sort of contribution to where impact can really be what's really important to bring to your thinking is relationality, emergence, and a dialogic mindset. So yes, I was going to talk about psychological safety, and I think that's just really, is our nervous system regulated? Do we feel safe to share our fears and our hopes? Do we feel heard and seen? And so I want to throw a name out, and I can put it in the notes later. Gervais Bush, great name. So he writes a lot about shifting from this diagnostic, prescriptive, linear approach to more of a dialogic, emergent, adaptive approach. And it's such an inspirational body of work, and it requires that sort of courage to decentralize power. So we go from top-down hierarchical decisions to this more like anywhere, where's the energy, and let things emerge and draw people into the conversation. So I haven't really shared half of my notes, but that is my contribution, is let's notice where is our mindset, let's bring our self-reflection to check in with our biases, and let's decentralize power to empower people. Because crazy, I know, but when you go to work, you don't leave your heart and your body at home. You bring them with you. So maybe let's work with them, and that could just be a good thing. And that's my 4 minutes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Freda. That focus is really, really important. So up next, we have Cherish Wilkinson from Gisborne. Cherish is passionate about creating impact through Māori communications and storytelling. Over to you, Cherish.
Tēnā tātou, I te tuatahi tēnei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Ko ai au heuri tēnei no te tairāwhiti, ko Ngāti Paraurau a koromo whakātau Kiwi, ko Cherish Wilkinson tōku ingoa. When I saw the pānui about joining this panel and being a part of the conference, I'm going to be honest, I did have imposter syndrome. I don't normally do these, but I'm putting my big girl undies on today, whānau, so bear with me. But it's just such a really great opportunity to talk about creating impact through communications and storytelling. As Caroline's mentioned, I live in Gisborne and currently work as a principal Māori Comms advisor at DIA, the Department of Internal Affairs. And I'm also one of the whānau members of Taikie, the first impact house in Tairāwhiti. And our kaupapa is kickstarting the aroha economy from Tairāwhiti. We operate under the tikanga of koha. So just like a marae, we all koha into the bank account and we give generously, whether that be our time, our knowledge, or our connections. So we don't take on any external funding, which allows us to remain autonomous and self-determining on the impact mahi that we're doing. And I also just want to touch briefly on the name Taikie. So some of you might be familiar with those kupu that we use at the end of karakia. Haumie, huie, Taikie. It's the Taikie part that connects to impact in the sense that when we've laid out the intention in the karakia, we're now taking collective action to bring that intention to life. So if I bring it back to comms, my intention is to support the development of Māori comms as a practice and Māori storytelling, and to support Māori to get into comms. So I've worked in comms for over 10 years now, and just in the last few years, I've seen the growth in the demand for Māori comms specialists. But often there just isn't enough Māori working in this space, and especially at a senior level. And you'd be really lucky to find a comms person working in iwi or community NGOs, because eventually all the good ones get snapped up by really flash, high-paying government jobs or go to the dark side consultancy. So we've really got to think about what is the ecosystem that's required to support Māori to want to get into this space. I think Māori comms and Māori storytellers play a really important role. We help to preserve our culture. We amplify the voices of iwi, hapu and whānau Māori, and we challenge stereotypes. I can't stress enough the importance around authenticity, being Māori, being immersed in our iwi, hapu, whānau, marae life, and being part of our communities. But I don't think it's enough to just have whakapapa. I think you also have to have tikanga. So you need to understand tikanga and you need to know how to practice that. So things like kanohi kitea, showing your face, showing up for others, being a face on behalf of your whānau or your organisation, looking after relationships, sustaining those, and being really humble are really important. It's also a privilege to tell our stories. So yeah, I'm committed to doing that. I ran a Māori comms hui here in Gisborne. 25 comms people showed up, and I'm keen to create more opportunities for us to work together on micro projects and offer hands-on learning. Long term, it looks like probably exploring partnerships with education providers to develop more formal development and qualifications and learning pathways to get more Māori into comms. And if you've got any questions, please drop them in the chat. Kia ora.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Cherish, your work with the Impact House and your efforts to grow the Aotearoa economy and Māori communications are really inspiring. So last but not least, we're returning to Christchurch, where we're streaming from today. We have Erica Austin from Christchurch, and Erica will share her story of weaving her passions and areas of impact. Erica, the stage is yours.
Kia ora te whānau, ko waio, ko Erica Austin toku ingoa. Hello, beautiful humans. Da jia hao. My name is Erica Austin, originally from China. I moved to Aotearoa when I was 7 years old. Grew up and studied in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and moved to Ōtautahi, Christchurch over 10 years ago, where I'm tuning in from today. I'm architecturally trained. I'm a proud multi-potentialite, a person with multiple passions. I'm also neurodiverse on the ADHD spectrum, a mother to a 3-year-old, and my pronouns are she, her. To boil it down, I'm passionate about connecting people with people and people with places and spaces. And that's where I make the most impact. I can already see how I can support each and every one of the speakers in the session today. Thank you so much for your stories. We all need to build a support network and community around us. And my superpower is remembering stories and talking about other people's stories, and being the first follower to your movements. And this reflection really gave me an opportunity to deep dive into what leading in between looks like. So I'm just parking that thought about how can we empower leaders in between. I always struggle when I show up at these events because it's very hard to introduce myself. Imposter syndrome too, but because I don't fit in one box or represent one organization, but I found comfort in knowing that there are many ways to make impact. And most people I meet don't really know what I do because of the output or the tangible things that are put out into the world may look different each year, but my areas of impact and the why have not changed. And as part of my tangata tiriti journey is learning about the power of whakawhanangatanga, the building relationships as humans, and whakapapa, not just as our human sort of physical beings, but also the whakapapa of what we've experienced, done that shape who we are as well, and also whakarongo, listening with all of our senses and weaving those three into our everyday life. So I'm wearing my Bead and Proceed necklace today, founded by my beautiful friend Bridget Williams, who will speak a bit later. This constantly reminds me of my top 5 sustainable development goals, and it's the best way to highlight my areas of impact and my commitment to leaving no one behind as well. So the first one is quality education, and then clean water and sanitation, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, and partnerships for the goals. I will use my remaining time to try and give some of the examples. If I run out of time, that's okay. Talk to me a bit later. So quality education, I'm on the board for ACO Ōtautahi Learning City Christchurch, creating a learning ecosystem focused on access, equity and innovation. Clean water and sanitation, there's an initiative with Christchurch City Council here called Christchurch Conversations, which is exploring the different social, political and design aspects involving in creating a regenerative city. Reduce inequalities, 2 hats, Leadership Lab on one spectrum. I co-lead 2 projects that focus on amplifying marginalized voices, understanding more about intersectionality and provoking systems change. And on the other side, for ally skills, I'm a facilitator educating corporates and tech companies about how we can be allies within our workspace. Understanding marginalization and their privileges, working through real life scenarios and how we might respond in the moment and systemically. Sustainable cities and communities, really leaning back to my architectural training. I run a festival called Open Christchurch, celebrating the most exceptional architecture in Ōtautahi Christchurch. The festival runs annually and it's very focused on inclusion and accessibility. And each time we open up to 50 buildings for the public to experience over one weekend. And the most important in the center here for me is partnerships for the goals. I'm part of many sort of global movements, including the World Economic Forum Global Shaper. I'm also a member for Asia New Zealand Leadership Network. I'm also very much in my journey of learning about futures thinking and also strategic foresight, and part of a local group called Ōtautahi Futures Collective. I also believe that innovation and the startup ecosystem is a huge part of driving change in terms of how we create and implement innovation. So I used to work for Ministry of Awesome, Young Enterprise, and also Creative HQ Accelerator Program. And now I'm currently the community activator for Edmund Hillary Fellowship. And there are many fellows involved in this virtual conference today, including Stephen Moe. The fellowship is a community of 500 plus innovators, entrepreneurs, and investors committed to Aotearoa as a base camp for global impact. And the last thing I'll mention is that I'm a photographer, and I use this as a storytelling tool to amplify impactful stories visually as well. So these are all the spaces that I show up. It might look different next year, who knows? But I'm here, and I am just really glad to be part of this kōrero. Kia ora.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. Your multifaceted approach really adds so much value to our understanding of what it means to create change. So this concludes our panel presentations. Big thank you to all our speakers for sharing their human stories of impact. Now we've got nearly 15 minutes for questions. So if you do have any questions for our incredible panelists, now is your chance to ask. We'll open the floor. Jump on in. I actually have a question myself as well. I might throw that out there just to kickstart it as well. Throwing it out to all the panelists. If you could go back to the start of your impact journey, what's the one thing you would do differently?
I'll jump in. I would have started sooner. Like just really leaning into your puku, so what's in your gut, like, and just taking some risks and some chances. So whether that is reaching out, networking, connecting with others who are like-minded, yeah, like I would have just started a lot sooner. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of other great people out there. So when you're putting, I heard someone else talk about energy. So when you're putting out that kind of energy, which is about doing good in the world, you will find like-minded people when you're putting that out there.
Just going to throw,
I think there's a lot of people that might feel the same.
Yeah. I'll just throw a quick response, which is very similar to yours, Cherish. That's beautiful. Another initiative I'm passionate about, if you've heard of the Inner Development Goals, IDGs, I've started a Poniki hub, hasn't done anything yet, but so my response in terms of where to begin is like going inside to, you say our puku, and I would maybe say our heart. Like the more we know ourselves and our values and what matters and what it lights us up and what excites us, yeah, being guided by that inner compass is so important, I think, and also resonate with the, just go where the energy is. Don't try and force others to change. We can only change ourselves. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
My quick response is over the last decade or so in Christchurch, just from a physical context, we've experienced so many crises like the earthquake, Fort Hill fires, mosque shooting, COVID, among other things. And personally, at the start of my journey, I lost my dad to suicide. So after listening to this morning session, there was one quote by Leanne Dalzell: never let a crisis go to waste. And that really kind of resonated with me. But also the next step is actually thinking the crises were the negative impacts that made the opportunities for change visible. But why should we wait for these unwanted disruptions to motivate us to create change? Like my journey started with these disruptions, but if we are more proactive in thinking and more, weaving whakarongo, how can we respond and make change and make impact without those? Kia ora.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Alex?
All right.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, it was lagging a bit. And I think just adding to everyone, I think I definitely add, especially to what, Freda and everybody else has said in terms of knowing your own values and what you believe and how to articulate that. And I think also, I think something that I would, recommend everyone in terms of the impact space, working in the impact space, and even to myself. And I've tried doing that, but I think it's something that it's always important to work constantly on how to effectively communicate, because I think you can only really create change if you can communicate it effectively to different groups of people to get people involved. I think that's something that that in reflection I think is very vital and important, and sometimes is overlooked.
I think that's a really good point. Thanks, Alex. We've got a few questions in the chat, so I'll just bring that up. We've got one from Chris asking, where did each of you feel nurtured in your own journey of growth? If anyone wants to take that one.
Sure, thanks, Freda. Yeah, I think like one of the times that I've felt most nurtured has been when I was surrounded by a community of peers, other people who were also at a similar stage on their impact journey. Like there were mentors, there were people who were like ahead of us on the impact journey, but we were all just kind of starting out and we were all making mistakes together. And, you know, we would call each other up and be like, oh my goodness, can you believe this awesome thing happened? What, like, how did we manage to pull this off? We'd also call each other up and be like, oh, this is really hard. So yeah, I think for me, it's all about having a community of peers.
That's a really good point. I think that's important for all of us. So very important to keep in touch with those connections. I literally had the same conversation with someone yesterday, just talking about the importance of connections, having a network, and especially in the space of creating impact and sustainability, where it can be really complex and overwhelming at times, and sometimes very depressing and demotivating. So very important to keep each other uplifted and share those problems and stories. And cool, we've got Alex, you've got your hand up.
Freda can go first. I think she had her hands up first, I think, or was it? Did I miss you?
Oh yeah, Freda's got her hand up too. Okay. Yep, Freda.
I feel I was going to say, I thought Alex was going to go. No, I know what I was going to say. I'm going to just throw the yoga psychology in there. Inner narrative. So I was someone that probably suffered from the most negative inner narrative for a good decade. And that's a lot of yoga psychology. It talks about, you know, our inner infrastructure builds our outer infrastructure. So learning to nurture myself with my inner narrative. So you can always pivot, you know, like Erica says, crisis to opportunity. And yeah, and I think I love builds on what Pip said about, you know, we choose who we surround ourselves with. We don't have to stay where the energy's not good. What's that lovely saying? We're the average of the five people we spend the most time with. So I think, yeah, the people I spend time with and also where I choose to put my attention.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Alex, did you want to add something as well?
And I would say, I think in terms of nurtured, I think I would definitely say for me, I think I really felt that early on in my career when I started out in the sustainability space. I had a team that really gave me a lot of responsibility, but also support. So that's where I felt really nurtured, and like everybody else is saying, you know, being around people that share the same value. But also in terms of nurturing, I think sometimes you can also be sometimes for a period in an environment that might be not so nurturing, but challenging. And that's where sometimes you can have the biggest growth in just having that balance of those experiences. That's what I felt, because sometimes you grow the most in environments that actually really put you outside your comfort zone and where your values are really challenged and where you really have to learn how do you navigate those you know, varying values and, you know, expectations of people and even, you know, just behavior from people.
Very good point. It really is that area of feeling stretched. Cool. Erica, would you like to jump in as well?
Yeah, two things from me. On my journey of growth, I think really looking for those people who pause and look at you and go, I'm interested in who you are as a person, not because of what you do that they see in the world, but actually curious about finding out and building those deeper relationships. And Chris, has been the person who asked this question has been a good ally, and that has been a really nurturing start for me. And many of you here as well, like I can see Camille, I can see Jonathan Lee here. You are the people who have paused and looked at me in my eyes and had a great conversation to start off our relationship together. The second point is actually being able to, again, going back to Freda's point about nurturing ourselves, is blocking out time in our busy calendars to reflect, time for growth, time for learning. I'm an introvert. I spend a lot of time out in the community with people, but I get peopled out. But having that in my diary, knowing that is my time, really helps nurture my inner being.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Erica. We've got time for the one last question that's in the chat here. We've got a question that says, when it comes to lifting the voices of our Hapori Māori, what are some ways to motivate and encourage them that their stories are worth telling? Cherish?
Assuming that's for me.
I reckon.
So I think I understand, because that's coming back to what I was saying before. You need to understand tikanga Māori, and humility is a really big thing in our culture, and to seem to be showing off and bragging about your success is not something that we do. So something that I might suggest that instead is that someone who knows them intimately and has taken the time to build relationships and sustain relationships with them, to work alongside them to draw out the story. But it kind of comes back to, instead of focusing the angle of the story to be talking about the success, because that's the whole kaore te kumare kōrero, is focus on what has been the lessons learned, insights shared, and that's your koha. You frame it like it's a koha to connect with other people or to share with others, that might help them on their journey, so that you're forming a genuine connection. So yeah, kind of like use these sorts of things to make them feel more empowered and more confident, but coming from a place of humility, that it's a koha when we're sharing our stories, and a privilege to share those stories.
Awesome. Very well put. Thank you so much. So this is pretty much our time as well, so perfect timing. So thank you so much for all the questions and insights from the panelists. As we wrap up, I'd just like to extend a really heartfelt thanks to all our speakers for sharing those stories. And I hope that the session has brought you perhaps a renewed sense of purpose or inspiration. And that really brings it to the end of our panel discussion. If you have any further thoughts or questions, I would really encourage you to connect with the speakers after the event. Once again, thank you all for being part of this conversation, and have a fantastic rest of the day at the Seeds Impact Conference.
Perfect.
Thank you for your awesome hosting, Caroline.
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline, for guiding that so well. And I loved your little sign for time's up. It was very, very good. But now it is time for lunch. So everyone can sneak off and get some kai, and we'll see everyone back at 12:30.